Hi everyone, you're welcome tonight. I hope you've had a very good week, and kudos to those who have been practicing, trying out all that we've been discussing since this AI Map Bootcamp started. Understand some people are still trying to, get their hand through a number of things, and just like I will always say, just take your time and try it out. I mean, don't be so quick to conclude you're not getting it, it's not working, and all of that. That might not be a very good approach to it. So today we'll be looking at something more interesting from what we've been doing before. But hope you can see my screen today. We started that already yesterday, but intentionally did not go too far because after this week we'll enter into something pretty much directive, which is Python for data analytics. And Ezekiel, you're going to see Ezekiel face more in the coming weeks. So today we're going to be talking about classes and objects. So we started that already yesterday, and we're going to dive into it. And also we're going to look at the what we call the OOP concept. The OOP concept is object oriented programming. So there is a way to write code, and this OOP concept will guide us into. We will introduce that. But I understand a number of us might be hearing that like for the first time. Just relax yourself. Just listen to it again, and I will do well to also mention some of these things again. So yesterday we started about classes. Let me be sure you can see my screen. Okay, good. Okay. So I see you can see my screen, and I'm also seeing that from the next tab. So a class is a user-defined prototype that defines a set of attributes, that is the data members of variables and methods that characterize any class object. An object is a unique instance of a class. So far, we have been working with objects, and this object belongs to a Python built-in classes. For better understanding, suppose we create a variable named fruit and we assign it to a string value of banana. Then banana stores in fruit variable is an object, of course, that belongs to the Python string class, right? With the object, we can also access all the attributes of a class. Okay, that's what we're trying to say here. So if we look at type here, type is a method, all right, and we're going to get a result to say, okay, the class this fruit because it's storing up, banana, which is string. So the class is storing up here is a string. Just going trying to tell us how we use some built-in methods, from a class. Don't worry, as we move on, you understand this. So how do we create a class? To create a class, we say class and we give it the name of the class, which is person. All right, just the same way we're defining function. But of course, the key word here is class, and we pass the name of the class person. All right, that is the first thing to take note of. All right, so to call a class, of course, just the same way. All right, we won't see the effect yet because we really didn't put anything serious in our class. Okay, so it's just telling us here, this is just a pointer that you have created a class called person. All right, and we have this. Please take note of what I am talking about. We have the init function. Now, how should you see an init function? The first thing is that an init function is what we call a class constructor. All right, it's a class constructor. This function is always executed when a new instance of a class is created. It is used to assign values to object properties or other operations that are necessary to do. Don't worry, when we look at the example, you understand these things. But this is always very important. This is like the first method of a class. It's like a mirror of that class. All right. It's like the one who will tell you what the class makeup is, right? It tells you what the class makeup is. So see your init. This init is underscore underscore init underscore underscore open and close bracket. All right. So it is we call it class constructor or private method. These are just grammar and blowing. Don't worry, we are still going to look at it. I'm just trying to explain what it means. So it is used to assign values to an object property or other operations that are necessary to do when the object is being created. So the first parameter of an init function is a self. All right. Now, what's this self? This self is primarily just a mirror. All right. Just telling you, self simply means, if I say, for example, my name is Israel, I don't need to keep saying Israel, Israel, Israel. I could just say E, just trying to still refer to Israel, who is a guy. All right. That is what a self is doing. A self represents the current instance of the class, which is used to access a class attribute. It's still the same thing as Israel, but I won't be saying Israel, Israel. I will continue to use like a pronoun, right? He's a boy, he's a Christian, he works as this. It's still the same Israel I'm referring to. It's the same thing when you see a self in a class. When you see self, I'm primarily still trying to refer to that class. But instead of calling the name of the class almost every time, I will just be saying self. So that self is just saying this is who you are. Now let's look at an example. It makes it clearer here. All right, let's quickly look at an example. So we created a class, we call it person. All right, so this is a class and we call it person. The first thing we need to do to a class is that we have to create the class constructor, which is also known as a private method. Now, this private method is self underscore underscore init. All right, now what are the makeup of this self underscore init? Don't forget, this self underscore init is just a copy of this class. It's referring to this class. What is the name of the class? Person. All right, so it's like, what if you now say what are the makeup of the class? This is like by default, this is the makeup of the class. The class is not alone. The class has self. What is this self? It's saying that this init underscore init, all right, belongs to this person class. That's why this self is there. And what are the makeup of this person class? It has a name, it has age, it has gender, it has nationality. This means that we are saying here, we are affirming here that this self, don't forget, what is the self here? Is the person. This self is the person. It has a parameter, just like we will used to have for normal functions. It has parameter name, it has age, it has gender, it has nationality. Now we want to affirm again to ourselves that this name belongs to this person. This age belongs to this person. This gender belongs to this person. This national belongs to this person. So how do we do that? We say self, which is like saying person, dot name is the name we define here. We are telling it that it belongs to this person, though, by defining it this way. We also said self dot age belongs to the age we defined here, just to affirm again that these guys, they belong to the class called person. Also, we have self.gender. We are saying that this gender what belongs to this person. Self.national belongs to this national. If I now say self, for example, if I say self dot maybe email, I'm assigning to mail. Now this will be wrong. Why? Because I have not declared as part of the parameter for this class. But if I want it, if I still want the email to be seen as part of the parameter of my class person inside the constructor, don't forget, this constructor is just trying to tell you who this person is. This person, we're not saying that what are the attributes. This person has a name, has a age, has a gender, has a national. Also, I can decide to add the email to it. All right, I can decide to add this email to it. So to confirm, all right, to put the endorsement is by introducing this line of code by calling the name self.name. The same name you call it here is what you are signing into. Self.age. I can't say age, capital A. This is error because that is not the name I defined here. All right, that is not the name I defined here. Self.gender. All right, so I will change this to small a, because of course it's always advisable to write in lowercase so that you don't have, because Python can also be sensitive. All right, Python can also be sensitive. All right, so self.national is national, self.email is email. Okay, I wasn't saying anything. I'm just checking the chat to be sure that we are all on the same page from what the basic thing I've explained. So here, this is the class constructor, And don't forget, I'm explaining this again because if you are creating a class, you must have it and you must know the makeup for it. So the question is, I'm defining a class. See a class like an entity. And of course, every entity is like an object. It has an identifier. For example, we are all objects. A person is an object because it has some attributes like name. A person has face, has ears. That is the makeup. So it's the same thing here. We have defined a class called person. So this person guy now has a name, age, gender, nationality, and email. But what's this self doing? This self is like a mirror that is trying to tell this person his makeup. All right. The self is like a mirror. We have explained that. So it represents the current instance of the class, which is used to access all the class attributes. So with this self now, we can use this self to access all of these guys. And don't forget, the self is trying to mirror which class now? Is person. Right, is person. So we create a self dot name to have the name of the person, self dot age to have the age of the person, self dot gender to have the gender of the person, self dot national to have the national of the person, self dot email to have the email of the person. Now with this, how many parameters does the class person have? I want to be sure you understand what I'm saying. How many parameters from what you have here? How many parameters does the class person have? Anybody in the chat? How many parameters does the class person have? People are saying 6. People are saying 5. Okay, so let's go back to it and check it. At least, even that you are even mention something at this point, I think that's a good one. So let's go back to check that. Okay, so now, first thing to note, this self is not a parameter. All right, it's just a reflection. This self is not. So it is name, age, gender, national, and email. This self is just a mirror. It's just a keyword, all right, to affirm that you belong to this class. And that is why we also have to, mention it clearly here. Now, you can see the other things we have in this class called person. We have a function here, right? But a function in a class is called method. It's not a normal function. But once you have a function in a class, is called method. Please take note of that. Once we have a function in a class, it is called method. So that means, of course, this is also a method, but it's not really like a method like that because it's just used to define what our class is supposed to be, what the default parameters of the class is. And like I told you, this guy here is called a class constructor, or we call it a private method. It's called a class constructor, or we call it private method. It's called a class constructor or a private method. Why? Like I mentioned, this is a function. We have learned about function before now. But what this primarily is telling us that whenever we are working within a class, our function is known as a method. All right. Our function is known as a method. Our function is known as a method. So now, what is the first method we want to create? We define a function called describe. And you can see we just set self there. What does that mean? It means that is depending on all these guys here to function because it doesn't have its own parameters. It doesn't have its own defined parameters. So it's going to depend on this guy, all right, these guys here to function. So what do we want this describe person to do? We want it to print self.name, that is taking this guy here, which is a makeup of the class. We want you to print the gender, all right. Also, we want you to print the age. So that means there are 3 parameters that are supposed to be taken in here. But because this guy has been defined, all right, already as the makeup of the class called person, and this self is a mirror of it. This self means the same thing as person. So it's the same thing happening here. So we're just trying to call this guy here. This self here means we're trying to call what? This class. And of course, all the parameter of the class automatically, we can also call it within the method, even if we don't declare anything. So that is why we are able to use this guy here, to use the self to access this guy, the name, the gender, the age. All right. We also define another function, which is a method in the class, right? So what is the name of the function? That means the name of the class here is what? Nationality. All right. Still self. What does that mean? This self should be a, that means it can access any of these parameter from the class constructor. Any of these parameter from the class constructor. So which of them does it want to access? It wants to access the national. That's why you can see that we are calling self before it. All right. That's why you see that we are calling self. That means that we are trying to access these class parameters. We're trying to access this class parameter. And the final one, we define department. Now, if you look at this carefully, we did not have anything like department in our class constructor. That means that is why we are saying self. Why are we putting self here? It's just saying that this should be seen as a method in the class. All right, this should be seen as a method in the class. That's why this self is here. But you can see that here we define a new parameter here called what? Department underscore name, because it does not exist before. All right, and you can see we define it here, and we are not saying self dot department underscore name. Why are we not saying self dot department underscore name? Anybody? We're just saying department underscore name. Why do you think we are not mentioning self dot department underscore name? Anybody in the chat? Anybody in the chat? Why do you think we are not saying self dot department underscore name? We're just saying department underscore name. Anyone? Please, today's class is line by line. You must be able to understand what I'm saying. No? Good. Good. I like the comment I'm seeing, because the pattern is not part of the parameter of the class. Yes. Because pattern was not part of the parameter. Good. We did not define parameter initially. Yes. As part of that class. Good. Already defined, I guess. I don't understand what patient is saying here. Pattern is not defined in the law parameter. What do you mean law parameter? Because it does not have, yeah, it does not, yeah, that parameter is not there. It's not connected to the same. Yeah, that is not connected to that class. Yes, okay. It's not part of the class. Good. Self has been called because self is defined already. I'm not sure I understand what some people are saying now. But the ones I understand, I'm saying yes to them because it's a method and not the class parameter. Say that that's wrong. That's not the reason why department name is mentioned. I'm going to explain that again to create more context for you. Self has been called. No, that's not, because self is defined already. Some maybe it's not defined. It's not maybe. It's not there. It's not in the mirror. Yeah, that's correct. Department is not part of the parameter. Yes, it was not part of the parameter. Yeah. So I think a number of people understand what we're saying. I'm going to take that again. Okay. So let's look at this again. This self that we are putting here is just a pointer to this class here. All right. Saying that it belongs to whatever we are doing in all of these guys, it belongs to the class person. The reason why we have to mention department here and not say self dot department underscore name is because, like we have already mentioned, this class does not have that parameter before. So now if we want to create a new one, we need to mention it. For example, maybe I want to also create in the department, maybe I want to create the level. So that means if I want to call it's not here. So that means I need to be the one possibly, just doing I belong to, so I just mentioned the department, the level. All right. So you can see I did not say self.level to why, because level and department name does not exist in the class attributes in the class constructor. That's good. So now we have created, so if you look at this now in our person class, we have describe person method, we have nationality, and we have department. So the same way when we run a class, it does not automatically run. We have to call the class. All right. We have to call the class. Okay. So the same way, how do we do that? So before we even talk about results, let's do this. So now in the person, don't forget this person is expecting some parameters by default, because there are some parameter we passed there. So he's expecting name whenever we call the person. He's expecting the age, he's expecting the gender, he's expecting nationality, and email. All right. So if I run this guy now, because I already passed the name, I pass the age, I pass the gender, I pass the nationality. So if I run this guy, now it's throwing an error. Why do you think it's throwing an error? I want you to look at it carefully because we have learned about positioning yesterday when we were doing function. You can see I already passed Ayomide 19 male China. Now this is throwing an error. Why do you think I'm having an error? Anybody? Why do you think I'm having error? Why do you think I'm having error? Excuse me. Good. So is missing email. Very good. All right. So it's not also you have so that when you are seeing those errors, you're not feeling what is happening. All right. Good one. So he's expecting email, all right, to be added. So I'll just add an email here now. Okay. So at least I'm glad you are getting it. Now you can see that we did not really see anything. Why? Because it's a class. And the easiest way to enjoy a class is by calling a method here. Even though we have already mentioned what we are doing here. So here I've just called the class. Nothing is happening in the class. It just shows that the class is fine. So I can make the class like an object like we used to do whenever we are calling. So I put that inside result. All right. Now from this class now, there are three methods I can access. I can access describe person. I can access nationality. I can access department. So for me to access describe person, because I will just call the results. All right, dot what is the name of the class method I want to access? Describe person. So I'll write describe person. You have to look at it carefully the way you wrote it. Now why am I not passing anything there? Because I did not add any new thing. Is depending on the class constructor to run this successfully. So let me run this. You can see it says my name is Ayomide. I am a male. I am 19 years. You can see that it's depending on the Ayomide that is declared in the class, depending on the male declared in the class, depending on 19 declared in the class. All right. So now, if I also want to access, let me open a new cell. If I also want to access the nationality, I will just call the results. Of course, it's the same thing. I can also call the person if I don't want to put my what's it called now. I don't want to put it in a as an object. It's still the same thing. I can still call person dot nationality. It's still the same thing. All right. Now, same thing is not expecting any new value. It's depending on the class constructor self to give the results. So if I run this, why error person is missing. Yeah, because if you look at this carefully, I've changed this guy into a parameter, so it's difficult to know person like that. So I would rather just use results since I already stored it inside my results. So result dot nationality. So everything should be fine here. Can you see that nationality is what is China? Nationality is China. So if I want to call the third one, now if I call the third one, which is what department? Of course, it depends. It's a class, it's a method in the class, but then it's expecting department name and level. So let me call this guy. So it will be results dot what dot department. Now here, if I call this guy, it's going to throw error, right? Yes. Why is this guy throwing error? It says person dot department missing to parameter require positional argument. Why is he expecting department name and level? All right. So I'm going to ask her again. Why do you think this is showing error? Why is this showing error? Why do you think this is showing error? Excuse me. Yeah. So department and level not defined, not yet defined to person. You don't even need to define it to the person. You just have to input it when you are calling it. Yeah, I see you got what I'm saying. So it expects. So the point here is expect me to pass it's expect me to pass department. So then pass department. I just call it AI department. then my level, I'll just say maybe level 10. Okay, so if I run this now, can you see that now? So my department is AI department. I belong to 10. So it doesn't even have to be that it's defined within. You don't have to always define it within the person parameter, the class parameter. No, just make sure that if you need it, because it's not everything that will have been defined with your, it's everything that will be available within your person. You can create a new method and pass its own parameter to it. That's obviously what we just did here. So I just check other example, result department. I pass computer science. I'm especially level 2, so I'll pass level, maybe level 4. Can you see? So my department is computer science. I belong to 4. So same thing here. Result here, I change the value that should go into my results. Maybe I can call this result 2. So it will be person, Tomiwa, 12, of course, I've added a new parameter. So if I run this guy, all right, we might have some errors here. Why? Because we expect it to pass national and pass email is expected as the makeup. So I'll just pass here Nigeria. Then I pass in the email. So I'll pass another email. Tommy baby 01 or 12 gmail.com. Okay. So if I run this now, everything should be fine, right? So yeah, you can see here. So look at this one now. For nationality, let's look at nationality again. Okay, I'm even inside result 2, nationality. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not supposed to, if you look at our nationality, I'm not sure we're supposed to pass anything there. All right, so I'll just remove the value Nigeria we're passing here, so it doesn't expect it, because we did not pass any guide there. But you can see that, so that you are careful, about the approach, you are using to identify whatever it is, that you have. So let me be sure you understand what we are doing to this stage. But that's pretty much the concept of the class and method. Okay, I can see people still answering my question. Okay. Okay. Yes. No department. Yes. Beautiful comments. This makes sense. Department name level are not yet defined. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, good. So good one, guys. Okay, so let's continue from here. So it's same thing here. P1 is person, Michelle 23, female. Don't forget, I've added a new parameter here, which is email. So I must always ensure that I enter my email, because I've upgraded my code kind of. So ola@gmail.com. Something is still missing. All right. You can say I did not have, so you have to be careful. I didn't have the nationality here. So let me just put it clear. So you always get those kind of issues, and that's why I'm showing you now. So equally, because it expects 5 parameter, like we established, it expects 5 parameter: parameter 1, parameter 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. So also you can try to select, since you already save a value there, you can try to select a particular parameter. P1.gender alone, I can get that, right? P1.name, this will overwrite the initial name that I have. All right. So if I now do P1.describe person, don't forget what is in describe person in your function. Describe person is supposed to just depend on my class constructor to pick the name, the gender, and the age. But of course, I've override the name now with this guy, Michelle Jones. So if I run this guy, the new value for my name has changed. So if I'm calling this method, my name is Michelle Jones. I'm a female. I'm 23 years old. Of course, this is another one. Of course, excuse me. This we have. This is not complete. If you run this, let's just see so that you understand what I'm saying. This is not complete. Why? Because I'm expecting 5 parameters and I only pass in 5 values. So you might also face that error. That is why I'm intentionally facing that error now, so that you can see what we are doing. All right. So we are facing that error. So it's expecting nationality. So let me put UK here. expecting my email. Okay, so here you can see everything should work fine. Then p2 dot describe person, all right, is going to be this guy here. And don't forget that this p2 is like an object. Don't forget, we say when we put like a function or a class in front of a variable, it's more known as is more known as an object. So p2 dot describe person, almost the same thing. I'm just showing you different ways of getting your result out. Why is this throwing error? Because it required, there are two more missing. Two require positional argument, national and email. So you have to be sure that you correct that also from your end if you are following strictly what I'm doing. So here we'll put Spain. I'll put the email. Okay, so that's pretty much how that works. Okay, so any question on creating a class, is constructor and creating methods inside it? Anyone? Just to be sure. Okay, so I see you getting what I'm doing. I can see that from the comments. Is it possible to infuse the department and level into the first class? What do you mean the first class? Do you mean the class constructor? Yes, but then you don't want to have all of them there. Some of them can be just be peculiar to a method. So if it's peculiar to a method, you can just put it there. But of course, you can also put them in the class so that you can just always call self. I don't think like that's like all right. So I think that's like the key thing. Yeah. So you can always infuse it there, but you don't necessarily have to do that. You can always put the what's it called now? You can put the parameters there. Okay. What scenario we need to create the class? Oh, you're obviously going to have many of that. We're just starting. Okay. So let's move on. Okay, so let's talk about instance and class attributes. So instance variables are variables defined in a class for which each initiated object has its own variables. That is instance. For example, in a person class, each person object has its own name, age, and gender. The set parameter helps you to keep track of the excuse me individual instances of a class, that is individual values of an object. Unlike instance variable, they are specific to each instance. Class variables are the same for all instances. We access class variables with the class name. For example, in the code below, suppose we want to capture the names and nationality of residents in Nigeria. The variable's residence is a class attribute and is the same for all residents. The name and nationality variables are instance variable, which varies from each resident's instance or objects. So instance variables or instance method are defined into a class and are used to get the context of an instance, right? They can be used to perform operations with attributes of an object, just like the init function. The first parameter of an instant method is the self class. So this is what we are saying. So yeah, look at what we have. We created a class, we call it residents, right? And of course, don't forget, this is the makeup of the class. The class constructor it has name and nationality. All right. But you can see here we created a variable, right? Inside a class. This is like a class variable. How that we can also use this guy instead of having to pass the nationality. That's what we are saying here. Instead of passing the nationality, we can just use this guy too. But let's move on and see what we are saying. So we define, of course, if they are this class called resident, what are the makeup? It expects a name, and nationality. That's why we did it here. Self dot name is name, self dot nationality is nationality. So we only declared a method here, and we call it describe what person. Of course, we are is depending on the makeup of our class. All right. So from here, we printed my name is self dot name. I am a self dot nationality, and I live in residence dot residence. Now look at this. So for us to be able to access a variable in a class, we will call the name of the class dot the name of the class variable. That's what's happening here. All right. We call the name of the class residence dot residence to be able to access Nigeria. All right, which is what where the person lives. Okay, so if we run this same thing, so we created a object from here, and we call it resident, expecting two parameters, right? We're expecting the name and nationality, but of course it doesn't expect the residence. Why? Because we already created like a class variable within the class that we can access using the name of the class dot the name of the variable. Please note that the name of the class dot the name of the variable. Okay, so here we have the name, the object, resident, brand, and Nigerian. And of course, once this is done successfully, we can access this method by saying r.describe person. So from this task now, look at this class we created. How many parameters does the class have? Good. Yeah, so we have just two here. Somebody is asking, can we have more than two variables? Of course, yes, you can have more than two variables. More than one variable, yeah, you can have more. Depending on what, it's all a matter of what are you trying to do. For now, somebody said four. Are we on the same page? But I've left that example. We are on this new one called class residential. Okay, good. So we have just two. Just two, but must we always use self, or can we change it? You can't change the string, oh, the self itself. That's like part of the makeup of a class. Yeah. Self will always be self. So yeah, two, name and nationality. So if we are calling this guy, we'll have just like what we're doing here. Resident is brand and Nigerian. So we call r dot describe person. So I always advise that you use meaningful names. So we call this resident or reside. Get something that is easier for you to understand. Of course, the hour also will work. I know many of us just write short stuff. Excuse me, and it's not a bad idea. Yeah, as it were. Just to tell you that we have what we call Duncan methods. So because the underscore, anytime you are seeing those underscore init, most of them are just more like a done that methods. All right, that's also another name you can call that init you are seeing, or your many of them. There are many done that methods here. They are part of they are objects in Python that you can print and all of that. I won't bore you with this mass example at this point because I want you to understand what we're doing. So I'll just leave this guy out because it has a lot of mathematics involved. But before we go to this guy, let's look at another example. Let me find an example that we can try in the class. And of course, I need you to also we'll look at it together. So I want to hear your input too. Let me find an example that we can try out now. Okay, so look at this example. All right. So we are asked to create a class called person with the following attributes. Let me see if you can try this. All right, in the chat. So I'm going to give you the next 5 minutes to do this. Of course, it's still simple at this point. So create a class, you call it person with the following attributes, name and age. Add a method called introduce that can print something like hello, my name is whatever the name the user mentioned is, and whatever year age the person mentioned years old. So let's test it. Create a class, call it an object called person, and call the introduce method. So let me see how you're going to create the class and the method. Let me also see how you're going to call the class and also call the method introduced in the class. So let's try this out. Of course, don't forget that you have a lot of exercise assignment to do, which is a makeup of all that we have done this week. So get ready for them. This is just one example of many other things I'm going to ask you to do. Can we have a class without defining init? No, you can't have a class without defining that. Does it mean that the variable resident is not a parameter? Yes, it's a class variable. It's not a parameter. So let's try this tax. Okay, so I see the idea that I understand that you might have issue using the chat to answer this. Okay, so let's do this together because I have another class work that we want to try together again because that's the beauty of all of this. So we'll follow the because at times please do well to follow the instructions the way it is. It says create a class called person. All right. So we define class and the name should be what person. Okay. So of course we define just the things we've been doing before. I won't decide to copy it as far as you have an idea of what you're trying to do. So you don't need to cram anything as it were. But it's also good if you can type it by yourself. So I just copy this because of our time. Copy this and more like do an editing. Define init, small letter, not capital, init underscore underscore. So self, what are the expected parameters? I expect name, I expect age, semicolon. So I'll say self dot name should be whatever the name is. Self, you have to mind that it's still within self dot age is age. Then we define another. Take note that this guy must be on the same line like this. Define another class called what? Introduce. And of course, it's not expecting anything than the self. Then we're supposed to print something like, so I could just use the format method. So something like hello, my name is, so pass name. So that would be self dot whatever the name is. My name is, and I am, so we pass the self dot age here. Years old. So we can close this. Okay, good. Of course, because this is a class, you might not even see whether there is an error or not. So we'll open a new cell so that we can call the class. We just say my results. My result is person. And what does the person expect? They expect a name and a age. So I'll use John since that's the name in the sample, John, and the age is 25. So I run this because it just tells me that was successful yet. So I could do result dot what? Introduce. Okay, you can see that. So my name is John and I am 25 years old. Okay, so let's look at something more deep because somebody is asking how do we use this. It doesn't have to be this simple. It can be something pretty much more than whatever it is that you are seeing. So let's open a new cell. So because what you're trying to do is for real life, nothing just. So let's look at this together. What do you think we're going to do here? Let me hear your thoughts first on the charts before we now try this together. So you have to create a class called bank account with these following attributes. So I advise that you try this out whenever you're working because a number of things you're writing here are wrong. But then, like what you raised, that this platform does not allow you to like write, which is fine. So yeah, but a number of people also are getting done that method is just all of those guys because there are many done that. It's not just only in it. That was what I was just trying to explain. It was not just only in it. There are a lot of other ones. That was what I was just trying to show us. But the one we are working with is a need for class constructor. Somebody said doesn't understand the question. You need to look at it carefully, oh, because these are real life questions. So look at it carefully. What don't you understand them? This is the normal transaction that happens almost day by day. You are asked to write a method on deposit. You are asked to write a method called withdraw and check balance. So what does deposit means? What does withdraw means? And what does check balance mean? So that's primarily what you're doing. That's primarily what you're doing. Stella, class bank accounts parameter that can be three now. It's only asking for account holders and balance. That's not three. But I want you to, because these are the way some of these problems are going to look like. So I need you to like tax yourself, and that is what I'm trying to achieve at this point. Who is doing define class? That's not the right syntax. Oh. Yeah, it's no, yeah, that's correct. But can we write the code for that? I want you to solve this question. So I'm saying you are explaining what is happening here. Yeah, okay, yeah, 1439, yeah. This is like the first thing to do, that's correct. So how do we then write the class, the methods that was expected? Then we can now test it with some of the values that they gave us. That's good. Yeah. Initial balance is the same thing as balance here. That's fine. Yeah, I understand that network is a bit bad. Yeah, sorry about that. It's everywhere, really. It's starting that I saved my neck now. I've been using MTN at some moment because it was also raining. So sorry about that. I understand the network issue. Don't worry, the video is here. You can always rewatch and possibly ask a question. Okay, so keep the tax coming. We will be taking a 10 minutes break now. So by 8:10, we'll be back. So by then, I am expecting that you have relaxed, grab some water, stretch yourself. Okay. Why you say inside the self string is not clear? The self is a mirror of your class. So it's always going to be in your constructor or in any method you are declaring. You're just trying to say self, me, it is me. Like I mentioned, Israel, we are saying the same thing. So the self is just trying to show the instant of your class. That's what the self is doing. Okay, travelers in self tax name. I don't understand what you're doing. No. Age is person. I'm not sure I understand that. Theo said that he has done finish. You need to try this. I'm going to bombard you with a lot of projects to do on this after today's class to wire you up for the real business. Let it not finish. You just try it. Follow the pattern we followed, and let's see what you can try. All right, so welcome back. I see some of the trials. I understand the issue you might be facing trying to use the platform. So let's solve this together, and we can try this. So you have to look at this critically. The first thing is to create a class called bank. So you try to like follow the name, bank account. All right. So same thing, you define the class constructor as a self. What are the expected parameters there? The account holder. Then you expect the balance. Whether you are saying the initial balance, it means the same thing. Then you have the self dot account holder is account holder. Self dot balance is balance. Okay. Now, the first method we have been asked to create is deposit. So, what is deposit? Deposit is just you primarily adding up to um, your value before, all right? Deposit. So, sell, and of course, you're expecting to pass a parameter called amount, the amount you want to add. Okay, so you can decide to even say if the amount, if the say, if that amount is not, I mean, imagine zero. Zero is not a number, right? So I can decide to say if my amount, this is just you trying to put some constraint, is less than zero. So maybe you should just print to you first. The amount is not, this is not necessary or acceptable. This is just you trying to put human context in mind. All right. So else, so you could just do self dot my balance should be whatever my amount is. So I'm adding it up to this guy. Don't forget, I already have my balance here. So whatever balance I have, as far as it's not less than zero, just add it up to whatever my um, amount is. These are just normal. Don't forget, these are just normal. What's the word now? Normal stuff that happen, right? So the next one I want to have is what is my withdraw. What's withdraw? Same thing. Why am I using self? Because I want to be able to mirror the class. Self say amount to. So I can do the same thing here. If the amount is less than, you don't necessarily have to do that. So let me not even do that. So I could just say self dot whatever the balance is initially. Of course, I should remove that, right? I should remove my amount that I'm withdrawing from it. Then finally, excuse me, the what's the last one? The last one is check balance. My check balance, I'm not expecting anything. Then whatever the balance is, so I'll just print whatever my self dot amount is, self dot what's it called, balance is. I'll just print whatever my self dot balance is here. So whatever balance is here, you should just print that for me. But then I can also format this result and say, my balance is okay. So yeah, something like this is what we have. Okay. I hope I'm still on the same page. I'm just using normal. There's an error in the cell. We can you even yes. There are many things you can do now. Who is doing a month? Enter your account number. You don't need all of this. Let's at this stage just focus on what we are doing. Nothing. The spelling of the service is incorrect. Is that for me? You are saying that to someone. My self spelling is incorrect. I guess you're saying that for someone. Okay, so let's try this guy. So let's call our bank account. So I could just call this bank. I call it bank account. I have to be careful you are spelling it the right way. So I'm expecting account holder. I guess that's the name of the account holder. I will use Alice since that's the name here. So the initial balance is 1,000. Okay. So I store this into my bank. So let me try to access a method from my bank. What's the name of the so I'm trying to access deposits. How much I want to deposit? Five. Let me deposit 500 into my bank. Okay, serve is not defined. Oh, okay. I think this was what the person was saying. My serve was wrong. Thank you. Okay, so that was done. So also bank dot withdraw. So you have to look at the spelling the way you wrote it to withdraw. What am I withdrawing? I'm withdrawing. I'm following the tax 200. Okay, so I withdraw that. So here then I want to get my balance. Bank dot check balance. So I don't want to pass anything here because it's depending on the value there. Yeah. So this is how this works. So what you're going to write there, it's all about how you're able to figure out the problem, how you're able to figure out the task that has been given to you. All right. That's an approach to follow. But is this clear now? I think we are using an example, completely different. You wrote, okay, thank you. Thank you, Deji. I've seen that. Yes, sir, for deposit. Is the only self we can use to mirror? Or yeah, self is the keyword. So I can use this. We can't see the syntax. Okay, let me zoom that. Not yours, I believe. Though I've actually zoomed it a lot, but I can still do that again so I can see it. Okay, so these are the syntax. All right, so with this, we have been able to like explain, how classes work and how to call your class. So we're going to stop here today because I know that this concept, these concepts are pretty new, no doubt. Classes is very, very, very a bit complex, but then it's something you can do. They were supposed to talk about OOP concepts, but I'm going to drop that at this stage. Maybe as you go on in your programming journey, you will be able to look at that. But it's not completely difficult, like I said. I mean, for me, not like maybe something is not difficult. I don't also like a stress life, but it's because it's not completely difficult. That's why I've been here for close to 12 years. So if it's something hard, I might not be doing this. I would have been doing something, maybe agriculture or something else, right? So it's not difficult, trust me. So I want you to try it. So I'm going to drop some assignments that I want you to try out. Of course, people don't ask where to submit. Just make sure your code is working. When you need to submit, I'll let you know. For now, just keep practicing. Just keep trying them out. You know, ask questions when you are not very clear because this is like something very very new, and that's why I won't be doing too many things around it at this point. So you need to look at it critically, carefully, at this point. Trying to check the chat to pick some stuff up before. I'm going to drop an assignment. It depends on somebody's asking, must we use if and else when dealing with class? It's all about what problem. Don't forget we have started that before. What problem are we trying to solve? All right. So if you know the problem you're trying to solve, Do you need an if? Do you need an else? That's why we have let all of these. We let these things one by one. But when it comes to problem, you're not thinking about the problem. Oh, do I need a condition at some point? I'm the one deciding to do a condition. You might not need it. Might not see it from that, aspect. So it's all about what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is what determines what you do. And of course, the other part is you want to do as much as you can to be sure that your code makes a lot of sense. All right, that your code makes a lot of sense. I don't know how to solve the I don't know how to solve the problem of LMS. Please, we can always do that. Which topic are we doing today? Ah, at what time? Okay, Henry, we're doing classes and objects today. Okay. So with this, at least you've understood, a good number of basic things that makes one a programmer, especially with Python. Of course, there are many other things, but at least with what we've learned from your program flow, you understand your conditional statements, you understand your Boolean operators, you understand your looping, you understand your functions, you understand your classes. It's always a good one. Whatever you want to Whatever clarity you need, you can always ask in your LMS platform or ask on the WhatsApp group. Okay, so I'm going to drop some tasks for you to do in one of the chats, so you can always forward them to other chats. I see that you guys have a lot of other platforms. So the task focuses on function. Some of them focuses on classes. Just please do well to try it out. Yeah, of course, the internet is there for you to make research. Just make sure you're not just copying things online. It will show. Try to break it down, try to understand what you're trying to do, try to put it in mind. That is very vital and very key, because concept like this shows that you really understand programming, where you can write classes yourself, you can write functions yourself. It's a whole lot. Yeah, all opening inside, no doubts. But so you say if you run your code on code lab, it gives error, and on Jupyter notebook is correct, and vice versa. Something might be wrong with what you're running. Are you sure that it's connected on your Google Code Lab? Because there is a way you have to connect there. uh, you know so that's like one thing you want to try out. So by God's grace, we'll be meeting again by God's grace next week, and next week we'll be entering to Python for uh, data analysis, and that will be taken with Ezekiel. So of course I'll be in the background. So I wish you the very best in your coming weeks. So, of course, the group is there to ask your question, try some of this exercise out. I'm going to drop that just straight in the group. Concerning while looping, you talked about this, but you treated examples for only plus one and not minus one. I've told you what is minus one. Do you want to decrease what you are getting? So it's not. The key thing is all of this is a factor of what you're trying to solve. All right. I didn't show you minus one because I didn't do an example that has to do with minus one. But the concept is just the same way. The same place you place that, you're gonna have it. What's the F sign in front of many codes on Google Code Lab? The F sign here is format method. Please watch the previous classes. It's format methods. We use it to format our words and also pass on variables within your code. Yeah. Okay, WhatsApp group. I guess you check your mail. That has been set at some point since this class started. So you can see gradually we are moving. We are just finishing the second week now, and there is a whole lot you need to practice. So I'm going to drop those assignments. Please don't ask me where am I submitting. I just said try them. When you need to submit, I'll let you know. Just keep trying them. If you have issues, your colleagues are in the group will ask you. And please, like I mentioned, please for advanced guys, please don't let's do anything advanced in the class. Let's follow the momentum of the class so that people who are just getting up are not going to be seeing too many things and get carried away. you know. So I recommend that you do that as much as you can. So the group is there to help. So please watch out for the assignment. Like I said, I'm going to drop it in one of the groups so you can do well to forward it to other. I know you have many other groups. Please just forward it to other groups. And of course, you can have those engagements. Also, it's going to be added to your platform too. As attendance, try and log into your MLS after the class and do that. Thank you, everyone. So on this note, I want to say thank you for being part of the second week. I know a number of things are happening, but just do well to follow through, watch the videos again. That's very vital and important. All right, bye everyone.